Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. I am Graham Hughes. It is Monday the 19th of May, 2025. Sorry about the little delay getting started there. But I'm here now, and that's what matters, I guess. We've got Witchy in the chat, we've got Beats Music, we've got Ori, we've got Gallifreyan, we've got Asperger's Europe, we've got Kate Smith, we have Diz and SG and Jeff G. Oh, loads of people in the chat today. This is excellent. This is most wonderful. If you would like to join our most splendiferous people in the chat, all you need to do is hit the big juicy subscribe button, wait for a minute, and you will be able to opine openly, as long as you're not a troll. Don't be a troll, because if you are, we will mute you and boot you. Very important that you understand that. So, moving on. Sean is saying morning. Morning, everyone. My only issue at the moment is that for some reason, my chat is not realizing that I am actually me. It thinks that I'm somebody else at the moment, and it's not letting me add things to the chat myself, which is fine. You know, I don't have to type things. I can just say them out my face. But, oh, hang on. Oh, that's a bit of a worry. Oh, no, that's okay. I thought there was no sound coming out then. I was having one of those technical mares where it's like, oh my God, do I have to do this while I'm actually streaming? That's not cool. Okay, now I can pop that out, and yes! Okay, I can write stuff now. Hurrah! I can add an emoji. I'll add a little emoji of me. There you go. See? There is no limit to my powers. Well, there is, but, you know, whatever. We don't talk about that. Let's talk about the EU. Hey, let's talk about Brexit. That's why this channel was started in the first place. I was happily minding my own business on the other side of the world. And then I had to come back and try and stop Britain doing the most stupid thing that any country had ever done to itself, imposing economic sanctions on itself. And I've got to thank America now, because at least another country's done something just as stupid when they re-elected Trump, who said, I'm going to put tariffs on everything. And they're like, oh yeah, cool. That'll learn them. And you're like, you do realize who pays the tariffs, right? It's the American people. Yeah, they pay the tariffs. The importer pays the tariff. The people bringing it into the country pay the tariff. People buying the products made elsewhere pay the tariff. The tariff goes to the American government. Taxpayers pay the tariffs. A regressive tax for regressive people. But there you go. So we have a situation now. At least there's two countries in the world, two advanced economies, that have voluntarily imposed economic sanctions on themselves. But we did it first. And we probably did it better. I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens with America. But we do know that between 4 and 5% of our GDP has been wiped out by the fact that we left the EU. Wiped out. And after leaving the EU in January 2020, the UK entered at this period of relative Brexit silence. There was a big kerfuffle in December of that year as we were inching towards a no deal, which the Parliament had expressly made illegal for the executive to do in this country, which is a good thing that actually the anti-Brexit marches and things like that actually achieved. When people think we didn't achieve anything, that's not entirely true. We did achieve this one little thing, which meant that the government couldn't just leave without a deal. So we did actually have a deal before we left. But it was a shit deal. It was a shit rush deal. The EU gave us an extra year to think about it because of COVID and the fact that we were dealing with COVID. But it turns out, transpires, I mean, you know, the result is Boris Johnson was busy partying. I mean, he didn't have time to deal with COVID, never mind having a good deal with the EU for our ongoing trades between our fair nations. And despite there was hoo-ha made by the initial trade disruptions, the fisher folk felt very, very betrayed. The Northern Ireland Protocol led to disputes there as well, and the DUP going rah, 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 about it, as they do about everything. And sovereignty rows sort of gave way, if you like, to political fatigue. And the post-Brexit settlement caused these friction points. The loss of free movement clearly is the one that, you know, upsets me the most, I think. Red tape for exporters, like loads more red tape for exporters. Hit to touring artists. Another thing that hits home for me. I'm a big supporter of live music. I'm a big supporter of music and the arts, and we have completely screwed that sector over because we're idiots by leaving the EU and then imposing these horrific tariffs on artists touring around Europe. They need a carnet for every single bit of instrumentation that they have, and the amps and the cables, to make sure that they take it all out of the country in which they brought it in. It's caused artists to go under. I've been talking to some British bands who say, they're just about breaking even these days with touring because there's no money in music anymore, in like recording albums. That's all gone to Jeff Bezos and the guy who owns Spotify. They make the money from that, not the artists themselves. And it's all right because AI is going to replace it all. AI is going to make all the stuff. I've got to say, like, AI is using ChatGPT to create boilerplate text to go on something like a description for a video or something like that is fine, But when it comes to stuff like writing dialogue or making believable things happen, because of the lack of context that ChatGPT has, it writes like a robot. It sounds like a robot, cold, emotionless, like not really connecting with the real world. The lack of humanity is the Achilles heel of AI, and it's why I'm not particularly as worried as other people are. And maybe I should be. You can tell me in the chat, Graham, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? But I feel as though creative people are always going to have that edge over AI because there is always going to be something a little bit uncanny valley about artificial intelligence trying to reproduce a human in a robot form, i.e. the episode of Black Mirror, Be Right Back, where Hayley Atwell has to make Donald Gleason come back from the dead as a robot. She doesn't have to, but she chooses to. And it's just not quite right. It's just not right. It's not the person he was, because it's kind of like an approximation. That's what AI is, an approximation of humanity, and it doesn't always get it right. Simon M, morning all. Chat GPT needs an emotion chip. Yes, Reverend Kathy, you're absolutely right. And that's where that's the uncanny valley of it. And I don't see it as a threat to the arts. Well, I mean, maybe in the future they'll suss that out, but at the moment, it's like AI artwork is still clearly AI artwork, and AI photographs are kind of clearly AI photographs. I know it's getting better, but it's still, I don't know. There's still something NQR about it, not quite right. Anyway, so back to Brexit, unfortunately. So but now we've got not just the changing political reality of the fact that we've left the EU, but the changing political reality of stuff that we can't actually do anything about really much, like Putin invading Ukraine, like Trump being re-elected and putting tariffs on everything. I mean, the instability surrounding Trump 2.0 and the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Putin has just thrown everything into sharp relief of like this question of like, why did we abandon our European brothers and sisters? Like, we are European. We're part of Europe. This is our continent, the greatest continent on earth. Ask a Brexiteer, what's the greatest continent on earth? They can't give you an answer. They don't want to say Europe, even though it is. They want to say, somewhere else, maybe? I don't know. And then they'll make some sort of shit joke, won't they? They'll go, oh, yeah. It's Australia, really, because that's a continent. Yeah. No, you don't live in Australia, mate. The only connection you got to Australia is the fact that your kids moved there to get away from you. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh about that. People get very upset. So European defence is now very much back on the table out of necessity, not nostalgia, not thinking, wasn't it great when we were in the EU? Like, absolute bona fide necessity that we come together as a continent, fight back against Russia, and be able to mount a defense of our continent against barbaric invaders like the Russians with no help from America, because America's not interested anymore. America's left the building, you know? It's gone. It's gone. It's out of here. It's gone every day, says Billy Kershaw. Yeah, every day. Trump has hinted at withdrawing from NATO, and their attitude towards NATO of him and his cronies around him has been absolutely disgusting. I mean, that they are, if they're not taking notes from the Kremlin, they're missing a trick, because the Kremlin will pay them handsomely. I'm sure the Kremlin does pay them handsomely for their traitorous ways. Labour has positioned itself as being pragmatic in all this. And the fact that the EU and the UK has to start talking about new security frameworks is a given. It's got to talk about that. And in the manifesto, in the Labour manifesto last year, it did promise a closer, ambitious relationship within the EU. So that's what that's what it was calling for. And this idea that negotiations for this have been negotiations have been going on for some time, actually. But the idea has been that Labour will start taking us closer to the EU, which is one of the reasons why I wanted Labour to win the election. Obviously, they've seriously let us down since then. But on this matter, I want us to make steps towards rejoining the EU. And yeah, look, I've got a lot of emotional investment in this. I hate Brexit. It ruined my career. In a lot of ways, my life has changed, not necessarily for the better, as a direct result of Brexit. I hate the horse-faced braying morons who told all the scabby morons to vote for this shit and somehow it will make their lives better. It hasn't made their lives better. Will they admit they've made a mistake? Will they, Fouquet? They just don't. They just don't. They never admit they made a mistake. And I helped organise events, protests, marches, rallies. I did the Three Blokes in the Pub podcast. I tried my best with my limited resources to try and kick up a fuss and say, this is the problem that we are having right now. Talking to shit-faced Brexiteers like Tory boys going, no, it's going to be fine. You're going to trade with the rest of the world, don't you know? And I'll have to sit there and really take them through the fact that the rest of the world's relatively poor compared with Europe. And there's only about 6 countries that are worth getting a trade deal with. And the trade deals that we get with those countries won't be worth anywhere near as much as our membership of the EU, of which I was right. I was completely, utterly, 100% correct on that assumption, because the deals that we have with Australia, the deal we have with India, I mean, it's £5 billion a year. Okay, that's pretty good, but it's fuck all. It's 40 times less than what we've lost leaving the EU. 40 times less, that India trade deal. And this is what I was trying to explain to people. You've got economic gravity, but also you've got the fact that most countries, there are 193 members of the UN, plus Palestine and Vatican City, which has special observer status, plus Kosovo, which is recognized by over 100 countries around the world, plus Taiwan, which used to represent China, and now it doesn't, but it's still, a force to be reckoned with, and as China will discover if they ever try to invade the place. Out of all those countries, nearly 200 countries around the world, 150 of them are relatively poor. That's just the way it is. And it's shit. I wish it wasn't so, but it is. And of the richest countries in the world, of the 40 advanced economies, according to the IMF, 32 of them are in Europe. 32 of them. There are only 8 that aren't. Only 8 in the rest of the world. There's none in Africa. There's none in Latin America. It's like the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, and Israel. There you go. There's your advanced economies that aren't in Europe. Good luck with that. And so, I feel vindicated in standing up against this shit and saying this is absolute bullshit from the start. But, and this is really important, I don't want you to watch this and go, oh, Graham, you've fallen down the pro-Brexit rabbit hole. I am so anti-Brexit, it hurts me. Like, I am European down to a molecular level. However, we need to get people on side. We need to get the population of this country on side before the government takes us back, or we have a referendum, or we do anything like that to rejoin the EU. And I'm afraid that's not going to happen for a while. I was hoping that as the effects of Brexit and the fact that a pint of beer has doubled in price, the fact that Farage is the worst of all scum, privately educated, rich, pompous, city investor, living off his daddy's money, drinking pints of lager, to pretend he's just like us, like the axe pretending he's just like the trees because his handle is made of wood. Braying on a Boxing Day hunt. That's what he is, right? And the fact that his party did so well a couple of weeks ago in the local elections, even though he's heading it up, even though the man who gave us this shit sandwich that is Brexit is heading it up and going, oh yeah, they just didn't do it right. If they did it right, then it, which is that as a politics graduate, like I attended many soirees, parties, events, gigs, discos in the 1990s in university. Well, I'll get chatting with people who were studying politics. Well, actually, no, it's usually people who were studying zoology who had an interest in politics. But they'll tell me that communism could work. It just has never been done properly yet. And I hate this idea, Look, democracy has never been done properly, but it kind of works. It shunts along different types of flavors, different types of democracy all over the world. Democracy is slightly different. You might have a presidential model, a parliamentary model, a monarchy model. You might have a system of referenda to decide what you want to do. There's lots of different models you can use for democracy. And it's chunky and it's clunky and it's a bit like a TARDIS or a Millennium Falcon. You've got to kind of hit it to make it work. But it works, right? It works as best as we can. I think there was a pithy thing that Winston Churchill once said. Pithy thing, even. Pithy? It's on a plinth. Pithy thing that Winston Churchill once said about democracy is the worst system, but it's better than all the others, which is true, right? And so I will defend democracy till the day I die. And people you meet who go, oh yeah, well, communism could have worked. It just wasn't done properly. The flip side of that is fascism could work. It's just never been done properly. No, it can't. There was a fundamental flaw at the base of both fascism and communism. And the fundamental flaw is this, right? Greed. Human greed. Fucks it every time. It's one of the things that fucks capitalism. It's one of the reasons why we need strong socialist policies to keep capitalism in check, because of human greed. Because that fucks everything. Unless you live in a transparent democracy where everyone can see what everyone's doing, and there are things in place that if you are too greedy and you take what isn't yours, stuff you don't deserve, then you go to jail. There is some kind of punitive measure against people doing that, instead of what we do at the moment in this country, which is we give people rewards. We go, oh, you don't want to pay tax? Oh, well then, you don't have to. Here's a massive reward. Here's £500,000 that you shouldn't have. You get to keep that. Go and spend it on a big boat. It's got loads of cocaine inside it and hookers. Go on, off you go. Enjoy your prostitutes and your gin and your swans or whatever it is you rich people wipe your asses on. So yeah, I'm very much against Brexit, but at the same time, and I can see that Farage is still doing well, which he shouldn't be. I think that is down to communications more than anything, and we've done that subject to death on this channel. We won't be talking about that again today. But where we are as a country right now, we are not in a position to go back into the EU. In fact, I will go as far as to say, despite what the polls say, if there was a referendum held next week on whether to rejoin the EU, we wouldn't rejoin. I'm going to say that now. We wouldn't rejoin, because you wouldn't have the papers on side. You wouldn't have Refuck. You wouldn't have the Tories. You wouldn't have these parties on side. It would be seen as a Labour measure. Labour are notoriously unpopular right now because of the stupid social policies that they've been pursuing of demonizing migrants and disabled people and trans people. It would be framed as this negotiation that we're having, this necessary negotiation we're having at the moment with the EU to try and make it so that we are not at the whim of the mad dictator in the Kremlin. Like, that's being framed by the press as a surrender deal. They're calling it a surrender deal already. Nothing's been signed on a dotted line, but they're calling it a surrender deal. So you could just imagine what they would do if our government said, right, we're going to have an in-out referendum to decide whether to rejoin the EU or not today, tomorrow, whenever, next week, next month. You can imagine what would happen, and I guarantee over 50% of the population would vote to stay out of the EU. So we have to bring the people on side and then bring the government on side. So it's no good for me as a anti-Brexit protester, like someone who wants to rejoin desperately. I do understand the difficulties in doing that, and I understand why Labour aren't pursuing this as a policy at the moment, even though, all things being equal, they bloody well should. But for good or ill, we live in a fucking democracy. And unfortunately, we live in a quite conservative country, and we always have. And we can try and be clever and add together the people who voted for this party and the people who voted for that party and go, oh, well, we're actually a socialist country, but we're not. We keep returning the Conservatives to power. We voted for refuck to take over the council here in Durham. Like, refuckers who have got no experience whatsoever of being on a council, running council services, running a big industry, a big organisation. They haven't got a fucking clue. And we elected them. I say we, I mean the people who voted, people who take an interest in politics. So, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm probably disappointing people in the chat now because they're like, Graham, what are you talking about? Of course we're going to rejoin the EU tomorrow. Yeah, I'd love that, but I don't think it's going to happen. I've got 3 super chats that I haven't mentioned yet because I was rabbiting on at my opening monologue there. Hey, and there should be a dialogue, shouldn't it? You're absolutely right. So I'll shut up for a moment and read what you've got to say. Ivan Ambrose there with the £5 super chat. I dissent, and I'm not afraid to say so, and I won't be intimidated by anyone. This is not a priority for me. I have no feelings on it. That's from Ivan, thank you. And then we've got Yorosh. I've listened to a comparison of a classical piece of music and AI generated one trained on the author's music. The challenge was to tell which was which. The original had emotion. AI made no sense. Yeah, no sense of context. It is the Achilles heel of modern architecture and AI. No sense of context. And then we've got Ivan Ambrose. We can't reopen the arguments between families and friends. Yeah. Christy says Brexit was never about taking back control of sovereignty. It was all about the wealthy and powerful in the UK. I'm getting worried that the proposed EU tax avoidance and they were getting worried about the then proposed EU tax avoidance and evasion laws. Yeah, which would have affected the UK overseas territories like the Cayman Islands and the UK Virgin Islands, where people put a lot of money that they don't want to pay tax on. This is something where Starmer looks like he's getting it right. The reaction from the right is predictable, although the BBC season ticket holder is quiet. That's from Colin. Liam says, why do you think losing the pound would be catastrophic? The euro and the pound are at similar levels now for purchasing power, etc. I wouldn't have a problem with us changing to the euro. I want a hard rejoin. I want to go all in. Told you. I've said this before. I want the euro. I want Schengen. I want everyone speaking German. That's it. No more English anymore. I'm joking. Not about the German, but everything else I'm being serious about. Yori says, I'd like to keep the pound, but if that's the price of rejoining it, rejoining the EU trumps all else. Yeah. What I never understood, right, was this, right? In a lot of countries I've visited around the world, like the Eastern Caribbean, West Africa, they would have one currency which was spread out across a few different countries. And so in the East Caribbean, it was the East Caribbean dollar. And in West Africa, it was the West African CFA. And in Central Africa, it was the Central African CFA. Now, the CFA, the CFA, is it is pegged to the euro. It's pegged to the euro. And the Eastern Caribbean dollar is pegged to the dollar, in the same way that the currency in Ecuador, in Panama, is pegged to the US dollar. So in Panama, for instance, they use they call it a Balboa. So $1 equals one Balboa, and you get Balboa coins like for $1, which are interchangeable with $1 coins, which are actually better to use than your $1 bills. I've got a crisp $1 bill here, but this is unusual. Normally, these motherfuckers are crumpled to hell, but essentially, you'll see signs up saying how much something is, and it's stroke B for Balboa. So it'd be 100 stroke B, $100, right? That's fine. You know, we could do that with the euro. I've always thought this, like, why don't we just peg our currency to the euro and make it so we still have our, you know, our British money, our nice British money with our Queenie on there. Well, no longer, but you know, and all you do is you have €5 as well. You can't see this very well because of the contrast, but you know, you have the £5 there, and you also have a little euro sign next to it, and it's worth €5. In the same way, like Bank of Scotland notes are worth the same as they are in the UK. The notes that you have in Hong Kong is really interesting. In Hong Kong, each bank prints its own notes, so you can get like a Hong Kong $5 note, and it's from HSBC. It's and that'll be different from another bank's notes that bank issues, which is quite an interesting way of doing it in old Hong Kong. But yeah, I never really understood why we couldn't do that. If someone can explain to me in the chat, I know it would mean that the Bank of England wouldn't hold sway over interest rates anymore and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the European Central Bank seems to be doing a pretty good job. And you look at countries like Spain and Ireland, both have the euro, and they're going great guns. They're doing really, really well. Paul Ewan, thank you very much. We need our own Lincoln Project targeting reform. I don't know, Liam. Thank you for the super chat, and I appreciate it. I don't know. Do you know why I say I don't know? Because I don't think the Lincoln Project was effective. They didn't stop Trump getting re-elected, did they? And I think we do have a version of the Lincoln Project, which is led by donkeys, who similarly to Lincoln Project, they do these really cool little stunts or adverts or whatever, and I think they make the point very well to the converted, to the people who already don't like Brexit, already don't like the Tories, already don't like Nigel Farage, already don't like Trump or JD Vance or any of the clowns that are currently clogging up our political systems in our respective countries. I think that what needs to happen is that the opposition parties, the left-wing parties, Labour, Lib Dems, the Greens, they need to up their game when it comes to their social media strategy. It's just there. It's here. Look, we're using it right now. I'm broadcasting to 200 people or something right now, streaming to them in their homes. I don't have to pay anything to do this. I don't have to. 250 people we're streaming to at the moment, and like it's not costing me anything. You know, that's amazing. It's not costing you anything unless you want to give us a super chat. Thank you, Ivan. No to euro. Look what happened in 1992 with the ERM. Then Greece, Portugal, etc. Well, I mean, if Greece wasn't part of the euro, if it was still keeping the drachma, the arse would have fallen out the economy. And yes, they were forced to bring in austerity, but from my point of view, it was the Greek government's fuck up. They were the ones outspending what they were actually getting in from taxation and what they could reasonably borrow. One of the issues with the euro, and I will concede with you on this, is that the interest rates were higher in certain countries than in others, and that seemed unfair. That if Germany wanted to borrow a bunch of euros, it could do so at a lower percentage, a lower interest rate than, say, Greece. I think that was unfair. And I don't know if they've cleaned up that system yet. But look, if joining the euro is the price we have to pay to rejoin the EU, then I'll take it. I would take it. I'll bite your hand off, right? Because of the economic improvement that we will get from rejoining the EU. However, yeah, I do appreciate that you've got a point where you say, look, look at these countries that haven't done so well out of the euro. But at the same time, in the next few years, I can see the US regressing as a reserve currency, as the reserve currency for the world, and the euro stepping up into that place. I can really see it. At the moment, the rule is if you're trading oil anywhere in the world, so if you're a Dutch company buying oil from Angola, you don't buy it in euros, you don't buy it in Angolan kwacha, you buy it in US dollars. So if the Saudis sell some oil to Eritrea, they sell it in US dollars. That's the rule. And I think that's going to change. Some places are still, some places are stopping doing that. But one of the big things with Mercosur that they can't agree on is what currency to sell oil in, right? So Mercosur, no, sorry, not Mercosur. What's it called? The South Africa, India, BRICS, that's it. Jesus, sorry. Scrub that little bit, delete, just edit that bit out. BRICS. The problem with BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and others, the BRICS countries. And they can't agree on what reserve currency to use, what currency to use to buy oil, for instance. Because obviously the Russians want to use Russian rubles, the Chinese want to use their currency, the ringgit, or whatever it's called. Each country wants to use its own currency, and so they argue about it. And so they end up just using the dollar because that's what they've always used. But there is rumblings about moving to the euro. And when that happens, the euro will become the strongest currency in the world. It will overtake the US dollar. Don't forget, although the US is the richest country in the world, there's a lot more people living in the EU. There's 450 million people living in the EU. And there's more than that that use euros, because there's countries that aren't in the EU that use euros as well. Although there are countries in the EU that don't use the euro. Czechia doesn't use the euro. Denmark doesn't use the euro. So there are some countries that don't use it yet. And maybe never will. But if that happens, I'd love to be on that gravy train. I'd love to be on that, that one-way ticket to the moon. No, actually, one-way ticket to the moon doesn't sound that good. Let me take that back. A return trip to the moon. Richard Martin, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. We're far too selfish and self-centered to take the euro, but use it when we go on holiday just to calm down Britain. Well, yeah. I mean, that's sort of my attitude towards it. I think you're right, and I think it's something that we could definitely do ourselves, and that's down the road. But to come back to Ivan's point, if you were going to rejoin the EU, I think that the EU, would negotiate a situation where we would not have to adopt the euro to rejoin the EU. That's not me being naive. It's not me being arrogant. I don't think about, they'll just want us back. But the real politic of it is the EU does not want a political and financial rival, an economic rival on their doorstep. They'd rather not have that. They'd rather have us in the tent pissing out than outside the tent pissing in, no matter what. That is what I've seen across. I know people who are very upset about what happened with Brexit, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, it makes little economic sense for the EU to shut us out if Britain wants to rejoin. At a point where we're not going to have some kind of hokey cokey shit going on where we come in, we go out, we come in, we go out. That can't happen. This has to be a settled question, and that's why we need to bring the population in with us. But if they make it a rule to say you cannot rejoin unless you take the euro, then the Brexiters, the Nigel Faragers, and all the newspapers, the filth rags, they will jump on that. They will jump on that like a bunch of motherfuckers. They will, saying, "Oh, don't let Europe rule Britannia. Blah, blah, sovereignty. Oh, they want to take our currency away. Blah 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 blah." So yes, if it came down to negotiations and we were trying to get back into the EU, I wouldn't. If I was the EU, I wouldn't make it a thing that we had to do. And if I was on the British side of it, I wouldn't necessarily push for rejoin the euro, even though I'd like to. That's my dream. Full reintegration. with Europe, with the rest of our continent. But we've got to talk real politics here. Like, what is the most practical way of getting people on side? And unfortunately, the people who are against Brexit have always been fragmented. There have always been groups from disparate groups from different parties, and there's been no real joined up thinking with people in the Tory party or people in Labour as to the correct way to go about reversing the damage that Brexit's done, or even what Brexit should look like in the first place. They told us that no one was talking about leaving the single market, and then we jolly well left the single market, didn't we? Richard Martin, I've read that one. Thank you very much. And then Ori, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. If we can rejoin the EU and still keep the pound, then great. If we can't, then do both, then ditch the pound. Yeah, Ori, I agree. It would be nice to do both. I don't really care if we do join the euro. It's not going to affect my vote to rejoin the EU, but I think it would affect other people's votes to rejoin. So there you go. So kind of getting a little bit off topic here because we're supposed to be talking about this summit that is going on. Summit's going on right now. Something's happening here. Summit is happening here today, and we can make. Let's have a look. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a message that I got sent about. I think someone put it on here. There was a Labour Party MP who put out a thing this morning on Blue Sky. Oh, I can't find it. Well, that sucks, doesn't it? Oh, there you go. Oh no, I thought I found it, but I hadn't. Oh well, never mind. Saying that there's going to be a big announcement today as to our future with the EU. Hopefully, they're going to bring in a raft of reforms. I hope this isn't just a small tinkering around the edges. I hope that with the changing geopolitical landscape caused by Russia and Trump, we need to consider new security frameworks, and we also need to realign ourselves. We need to join a customs union, not necessarily the customs union, but a customs union would be a very good idea. And Labour is very much in this case, it's positioned itself as a pragmatic, not ideological force in this. That they want to make Brexit work rather than reversing it. And obviously, to me, the words "make Brexit work" sounds like an oxymoron. It's like saying, how can I make this shell of a car work? Well, it hasn't got a steering wheel or an engine or wheels. It's never going to work, If you want to make this car work, then you have to make a new car. But negotiations have been going on for months, led by Nick Thomas Simmons and Michael Elam. It was Nick Thomas Simmons. That was I was trying to remember the name of the politician, the MP who's been working on this, on this, and he's actually put something on Blue Sky today, talking about this. Oh, that's really helpful. You type in Nick Thomas Simmons Blue Sky into Google, and his X account comes up, and then somebody else's Blue Sky account comes up, and then oh my god, B Sky B. That's really annoying. That's so stupid that it does it that way. Right, that's how it's. Look, Nick Thomas Simmons. Here we go. Historic day. After months of negotiations, I can announce that the Labour government has secured a new agreement with the EU. Oh, that says Sunday service. Well, I shouldn't say Sunday service. Hey, and that shouldn't say I was right. I was wrong to do that. Sorry. Just give me a moment, and I will sort this shit out for you. I realised that it's actually set up to show the papers. I don't want that. I want Blue Sky. Oh, kill me now. I'll just read it out to you. I was like, this will be a wheeze. This will work nicely. And then it just went horribly wrong. Let's see if we can just use that instead. Blue sky. Thank you. I hate producing while I'm. There we go. Bloody hell. I hate producing when I'm also trying to present at the same time. I feel like it's unfair on you lot because you're like watching, going, Graham, will you stop looking at your computer and look at us? Anyway, okay, so here it is. Finally, got it up. Oh God, I'm covering what it says. Oh my God, I think I might just go back to bed. To be honest with you, it's just not working. It's just not working. Anyway, so here we go. Nick Thomas Simmons, historic day. After months of negotiations, I can announce that the Labour government has secured a new agreement with the EU. Good for jobs, good for bills, and more. Britain back on the world stage with a government serving working people. So that's Nick Thomas Simmons' tweet there. Not his tweet. What's it called? You know, that thing. I think it is a tweet, actually. I think it's on Blue Sky. I don't know. Anyway, so that's what we're looking at today. I forgot where I was going with that. Jesus Christ, that was a disaster, wasn't it? Cup of tea for Graham. Thank you, Umka. I think I need it. I think I need something stronger. Oh, my word. The one thing I always learn for every place I was... sorry, I don't speak X. Do you speak English? In each of the language where I was going to, at least I tried, from Joanna. Yeah, Joanna, I mean, I tried to learn, like, when I was there, thank you, please, and cheers. They're the three phrases that I tried to learn everywhere I went. And unfortunately for me, the words dropped out of my head after I left these places, and I wish I could still remember them, because I feel like when you bother to learn even a bit of someone else's language, they're very, very, very appreciative of it. The reason why people in France get pissed off when you try and speak French at them badly and they end up speaking English to you, and that can be frustrating when you're trying to learn a different language, is because they can speak English better than you can speak French. And like me, like most people, they just get impatient. They're like, can you just spit out what you're trying to say? Why are you making this complicated for me? Why am I trying to suss out what you're trying to say? Just tell me in English, because I'll understand that. Whereas your pidgin French is doing nothing for me. Nothing, I tell you, nothing. So yeah, it's just the way it is, my friends. It's just the way it is. So yeah, Nick Thomas Evans and Michael Elam, and the Conservatives, meanwhile, are calling this summit a surrender summit. Reform is warning of a great British sellout. Oh, fuck. And accuses Labour of trying to sneak back into the EU via youth mobility and veterinary alignments. So let's just talk about this. We already have youth mobility schemes with other countries, Canada, Australia. We already have these schemes in place. They've been in place for years, where you get to come here for 2 years if you're young and you want to work, and you can stay here and you can work at a bar or whatever. That has always been a thing. That is like nothing new under the sun, right? And then you've got the veterinary alignment. That's to do with our exports. That's to do with the fact that if we have a veterinary alignment agreement, we don't need to get a vet to check every bit of exported meat that we have coming out of this country. We make sure that we align our abattoirs and our slaughterhouses and the whole meat process, our farms, with EU standards, which they're already at. And the EU says that's good enough for us. We don't need to check it as it comes in and out of your country. It's one of the reasons why in the deal with America a couple of weeks ago, which wasn't really a deal, it was just an MOU. But let's just say it was a deal. It didn't include chlorinated chicken and hormone-injected beef, because if it did, that would mean that we couldn't do a veterinary alignment agreement with the EU, and that would screw our farmers even more than they've already been screwed in this country for the last 5 years by the Brexiters, who promised them the world and gave them a pile of shit to eat. So yeah, Farage and co remain, loud, but polls are suggesting that the public favour closer ties with the EU, quite rightly, especially younger voters. And like I say, I think that it's important that you just go for the extreme option when you're a gobby scouser on the internet. You should say, yeah, we should rejoin, we should rejoin, we should rejoin. And then when people go, okay, well, we don't go that far. Let's meet in the middle. Like, that means that we're shifting the Overton window in this respect, in the respect of rejoining the EU, a little bit towards rejoin. Just keep moving it towards rejoin. And whereas the other side didn't accept the outcome of the 1975 referendum about staying in the then EEC or not, they didn't respect that. It was a supermajority to remain in 1975. All they did for the following 30 years was moan and whinge and whine about how we've been betrayed and how it was supposed to be an economic thing, but then it turned into a political thing, and the EU stopping me from having bendy bananas or something. I don't really understand, but it makes me very sad. Fucking babies. Anyway, so I'm never going to accept the result of that fraud referendum until we have a proper investigation into it and see how much influence Russia had on that fraud referendum. I've got no time for it. It was a non-legally binding fraud referendum. Like, if it had been legally binding, it would have been thrown out. They would have had to run it again because leave.uk, or whatever it's called, leave.eu, sorry, they broke the law. Believe broke the law. Vote Leave broke the law. But because it was only advisory, they got away with it through a technical loophole. So what's on the table today? First of all, a Security and Defence Pact. This is the centrepiece of the summit. The formal UK-EU Security and Defence Cooperation Agreement. This is going to not undermine NATO, but supplement it, apparently. It's going to bring on cybersecurity, supply chain integrity, and intelligence sharing. There's UK defence firms could access 150 billion euros, the Euro Safe program, which is a defence program for the whole of Europe, and it opens up new avenues for British involvement in EU defence structure. Obviously, Badenoch is currently saying, we're becoming a rule taker from Brussels once again, she says. She says that the government's let down our fishing industry, which it absolutely hasn't. They let down our fishing industry. Nigel Farage let down our fishing industry, where he was the head of the representative of British fisheries in the EU, and he only turned up for one in like 40 meetings. He just didn't care. He just collected his check at the end of the day. He didn't care about turning up or actually doing any work or doing anything on behalf of the farmers. Thank you very much to Rosanna for the £5 super. Oh, sorry, Rosie 2911. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hello, Graham. Just a Monday super chat. Oh, thank you very much, Rosie. That's very, very, very kind of you, and it keeps the channel going. It really does. So yes, Badenoch's complaining about it, and you know the fishing deal. They couldn't go into details at 8:35 when this came up on the BBC website as breaking news, but they said it amounted to a rollover of existing terms. They said the text as it currently reads as, we note the political agreements leading to full reciprocal access to waters until 30th of June 2038 and extending energy cooperation on a continued basis. So current provisions were due to expire next year, and obviously the government and the EU have got ahead of this and said, okay, well, it's not going to expire. We're going to keep that going. So yeah, sources are confirming this is just a few minutes ago on the BBC. The UK's willingness to extend EU fishing quotas to 2038 was the concession which resolved the talks late last night. In return, the UK secured an agreement that the aspect of the deal reducing checks on food exports to the EU would stand alone rather than be tied to any future negotiation over fish. Politically, there were some concerns in the government about angry response from the British fishing industry, but also hope that they can persuade those that are concerned that the overall deal means easier. It'll be easier for British fishers to sell their daily catch into EU markets. It's going to open up the EU for their catch. And today, the government's also promising to unveil a fishing and coastal growth fund, which will mean £360 million of investment in coastal communities. That's like the opposite of pork barrel politics, isn't it? That's giving money to your enemy. That's giving money to the people who like to vote for refuck. Here you go, have some money. Say thank you. No, don't like it. Don't know whether that'll work, but I admire the gumption. I admire them going for it. Umka, thank you very much for the €5. Always like getting euros on this channel. How can people separate politics and economics if they are very interdependent? Where do they get this idea from? Isolation of one from another. I don't know. How can people separate politics and economics if they are very interdependent? I don't know. I mean, the reason why people regard them as two separate things and don't regard them as like one thing that we have to get right in order for our country to move forward. I think that the vast majority of people in this country just want to get on with their lives. This is a lot, and we talk about politics every day on this channel, and it's not necessarily nice things that we're talking about. It's not people being lovely. It's not people's generosity or kindness or sense of community or building for the future. It's some rich bastard doing a horrible thing to people because they can. And I can understand why people shy away from it. And so if you're not taking an active interest in politics, it's easy to just go, oh, that's separate and doesn't matter, and, not look into it too much. I don't want to force people to get into politics, because it's like forcing someone to like football or Star Wars. It's like, yeah, good luck with that. It's just like you can't force someone to like something they don't. It's like trying to force someone who's gay to not be gay. It's who they are. Why force them to be anything else other than what they are? And I know it's frustrating. I know we sit here going, if only people understood, if only people saw the world the way that we see it. I get it. I completely get it. But at the same time, I think you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So yes, the Youth Mobility Scheme, which is going to be this proposed visa scheme for under 30s to work and travel between the EU and UK. Fantastic. Existing deals like the deals that already exist between the UK and, say, Canada and Australia, which I've mentioned. And this is seen by Brexiters as freedom of movement by the back door, because they've got freedom of movement. Don't forget, anyone who is rich, who is telling you to vote for Brexit, they have freedom of movement still. They have the money to pay for the visas and the work permits. They can live and work anywhere they want in the world. You can't. They want to take away that opportunity for you, because rich people are very frustrated that commoners like you and I can afford to do the same things that they do. We can afford to have a big telly. We can afford to have a nice car. We can afford to have a home, a house. And they want to try and stop that from happening. And they're doing quite well at stopping us affording houses, because they think that plebs, the lower orders, the 93% of us who went to state schools, we shouldn't be allowed to buy property. We shouldn't be allowed to live a happy and productive life and, have a good time. Only they are allowed to have a good time. And the only way that they can have a good time, the millionaires, the billionaires, because they're sick fucking sadists, fucking psychopathic fuckbags, the only way that they can have a good time is by knowing that you're having a bad time. I mean, these people properly get off on suffering. They get off on the fact that, Elon Musk has slapped food out of the mouths of starving babies in Sudan. They get off on the fact that Elon Musk has condemned children, babies in Mozambique, to be born HIV positive, because he took away the program that made it so that they reduced the likelihood of the transmission of HIV from a HIV positive mother to the baby. He took that away from them. And now those babies, many of them will die of AIDS. And he did that. The richest man in the world. So don't ever think that you need to defend these fuckbags. You don't. Millionaires can defend themselves. They've got the money. They really do have the money. And it breaks my heart that, like, a lot of people who aren't super rich fuckbags look at these rich people and go, yeah, they've got the right idea. They look at Trump. Ugh. They look at Farage. Ugh, and go, yeah, they're correct. That they've got the right idea. They've got my best interests at heart. And, I understand the I understand that you just want to shake people and just go, fucking wake up, you idiot. But it doesn't work like that. And when you say to someone, you are wrong, most of the time it just makes people defensive and undermines what you're trying to do. Anyway, freedom of movement, popular amongst businesses, young people, and cultural industries. Clearly, obviously. Why would it not be? We've also got the veterinary deal, which I spoke about earlier. This is aims to reduce friction at the EU-UK borders, especially for food, drink, agricultural goods. It will benefit UK exporters and reduce costs for Northern Irish trade. We've also got the way that we're going to have dynamic alignment with the EU, and this raises sovereignty concerns. But dynamic alignment just means if the EU put up their standards, we put up our standards as well. That's it. And good. We should do. We should have high standards, and we should keep those high standards. Because don't forget, it's not just for our farmers that we have high standards. It means that if we're importing meat from Australia or from Argentina or from the United States of America, it has to be to that standard, or we can't import it into this country. And that's a good thing, because if we didn't have those standards in, our British farms already do a lot of things to a very high standard, and they can't turn that around tomorrow to a low standard. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't quite work that way. But meanwhile, Argentina could flood our market with cheap beef, hormone-injected beef, if they have that in Argentina. I know they have that in America. They could just flood the market with it. But they can't, because we say, no, it's got to be at a certain standard. So even though we might have a deal with Australia where they can export 20,000 tons of beef into Britain every year, that beef has to be a certain standard. It has to be the same standard or higher as the standard of beef in this country. And so I don't have a problem with putting up standards. It's the way it should be. George has been a member of the channel for a whopping 20 months, George. That is bloody awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you. You are the best. Michael Fagan talked to the Queen about community. Community is the most important thing to our lives as human beings. We're not solitary creatures. We wouldn't have survived. We wouldn't have evolved. We wouldn't have got this far if we tried to do things on our own. It just never works. No one's a master of everything. You've got to work at what you can do, what you're comfortable at doing, and what you're good at doing, and anything else, delegate it to people who are comfortable and good at doing it. The problem we have in our society at the moment is we have a caste system in this country, which means that if you are born to a certain clique, a certain elite, then you get jobs that are way above your ability. Not your station, but your ability. There is no station. The idea that just because you come from a working class family, you shouldn't even think about going to university or getting a job in the government or getting a job on TV or radio. And that to me is disgusting. And it's got to stop. That attitude has got to stop. And we need to turn it around massively. 8% of our film and TV, people involved in film and TV, only 8% come from working class backgrounds. That is such an embarrassing statistic. And that's something that we should throw in the face of all these people who seem to think that there's nothing to worry about when I go off on one about private schools and how they absolutely dominate the public sphere. Public schools dominating public life in this country to an eye-watering degree. And yeah, I mean, that they know that to keep themselves in power, the best thing they can do is break down communities. Is to make it so people don't talk to their neighbours, so people don't go to town hall meetings, don't go to church, don't have any reason to mingle in the community. And they're very good at it. The millionaires, the billionaires, social media owners, they make it so that we're more atomized now than ever. We go online, we feel like we're connected with people, but at the same time, we're losing connections with our own community, which is so important for getting on in life. And yeah, I might have mentioned that I hate the rich, because I just do. I think once you're a multi-millionaire, you're obviously a psychopath. You've obviously done some bad things. I mean, maybe not. Maybe there's some people with money that are okay, but I think once you hit the $1 billion mark, I do worry. Anyway, so yes, the veterinary agreements, this agri-food deal, it is politically sensitive because it does involve accepting EU oversight in some areas. But where it is simply like this: you have a farm or you have an abattoir, and it's being inspected. It can be inspected by EU inspectors to make sure that it's up to the standards that it needs, to not have to have the checks done further down the line. But here's the thing: the checks done further down the line are done by EU inspectors. Do you know what I mean? Like you make you're a dairy farmer, not a dairy farmer. You're a beef farmer, and your cattle go to the slaughterhouse, and it's inspected by a British inspector because it has to be to get it to British standards. And at the moment, then it goes, if you want to sell it to Europe, it has to be inspected again, by someone representing the EU or representing the EU might be a bad way of saying it, because it could be the British inspector who inspects this, but like inspecting it up to EU standards, and the EU set those standards. So you could argue that the situation now, if you want to export, is that you need to succumb to EU oversight because they're the ones setting the level that you need to be at in order to export stuff to the EU. So yeah, I mean, I don't. It's not. It's like a technical difference, but practically, it'll make no difference whatsoever. I don't believe. Someone might put me right in the chat, but I can't see that making any difference. I don't. If you can explain to me why it would, please do. Then we've got the fishing rights, which I've spoken about. The UK fishermen want meaningful transfers of quotas to UK boats, and coastal states like France and Denmark are really pushing hard to maintain access to our waters, which was given to them by Boris Johnson, by the way. Boris Johnson gave them that. And this is kind of like a high stakes trade-off. This is like, we give access to the EU to our fishing waters, and what do we get out of it? We get a security deal and market access for our entire food and drink industry. And look, I don't want to demean fisher folk. What they do is fucking hard. Like, that is proper fucking working. It is nothing like working in an office. And people go, oh, I've worked such a hard day in the office, or I'll be sitting here going, oh, it was a hard day today. I did a 2-hour live stream. Oh, I'm knackered. It is nothing in comparison with working on those boats, in those seas, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get out there for first light. The amount of things that can go wrong when you are out fishing. When you are on a boat, it's like there's a million things that can go wrong. And if any of them go wrong, you can die. You can literally die. It's a dangerous job. It is a difficult job. It is a little bit of a thankless job. I get that. So, just want to preface that before you think that I'm dismissing the fishing industry. But the game Grand Theft Auto 5 made more money for the British economy, and GTA Online makes more money for the British economy than the entire fishing industry of the UK. One video game. I'm just saying. So yeah. They're also looking at border and customs reforms. There are ongoing issues, obviously, with queues and paperwork at ports and airports. There's talks on expanding, which is what I want to see, EU gate access. EU e-gate access for UK passport holders. Please do this. This would be fucking amazing. It means that when you join the queue for the EU, don't forget, when you join the queue for the EU, right? And you can't anymore. You got to go join the queue with everyone from all the different countries around the world. You might be stuck behind a family from Somalia who are trying to negotiate the visa status, literally at the desk getting stamped in, and you're stuck behind them for 3 hours. What a great system. But if you look at the EU line, it is EU, but it's also the EA. It also includes Switzerland. It includes Norway. It includes countries that are not in the EU, but you can still use that queue. If you're from San Marino, if you're from Andorra or Monaco, you can still use that queue. You're officially not part of the EU, but you could still use that queue to get through nice and quick. So if we can add ourselves to the list, where's the problem with that? Even the most ardent of Brexiters couldn't argue against that. Oh no, I like queuing. I like queuing up behind a huge family from, I don't know, Taiwan or somewhere. Yeah, I want to stand behind them for 3 hours before I start my holiday. No. E-gates. Perfect. Do it. And this also opens up the possibility of streamlined customs protocols. Nothing as comprehensive as joining the actual customs union, unfortunately, but a step in that direction. So the question is, will this move the needle economically? I say yes. I think it will. I might be proved wrong because of other worldwide events, Trump's tariffs and the war in Ukraine and the war in Gaza. But I say war in Gaza. It's not really a war, is it? The slaughter in Gaza, the bombing of Gaza, the wholesale destruction of Gaza. It's not really a war if only one side's fighting. But yeah, will it move the needle? Well, the veterinary deal. I mean, it will. It's helpful, right? And so's youth mobility. It's helpful. But it'll have a modest effect on our economy. Let's be serious here. The real trade boost is going to come from regulatory alignment on industrial goods. This is where we could really move forward and we could see quite a big uptick in our economy. And I like to have something nice to say for a change, something hopeful on the horizon. Rebellions are built on hope. But yeah, the real trade boost will come from that. Business groups are welcoming the thawing relations between the UK and the EU, but they're calling for deeper reintegration in the future. And this is going towards that. This is going towards deeper reintegration with our friends and family in the rest of Europe. And for UK manufacturing, retail, food and drink, this could be an absolute boon for them. It really could. Like a rhinestone cowboy. Yeah, so Starmer now needs to balance sort of pragmatism with something that he's not very good at, and that's optics. Labour are fucking awful at optics. We've talked this to death on this channel. They're shite at it. But he needs to avoid appearing to betray Brexit while undoing the worst consequences of Brexit. The right-wing media is already, before any deal had been struck, they're already framing this as a betrayal. And Labour's messaging has been pragmatism over posturing. I think they've said it. And the polling suggests, despite what the papers say, the public want cooperation, not confrontation. And this summit is going to be a test of Starmer and his team's ability to reset relations without reigniting the civil war over Brexit. So, the UK is unlikely to join the single market or customs union anytime soon. Unfortunately, that's going to be a 2030s thing, by the looks of things. But future deals on research cooperation, Horizon Europe, education, Erasmus, anyone? Erasmus Plus, can we rejoin Erasmus, please? Because the Turing scheme is a pile of shit. The Turing scheme for rich kids to go to Malaysia. Okay, cool. Thanks for that, rich kids. Pulling out of Erasmus hasn't hurt, Tarquin and Guinevere at all. They're still travelling the world on daddy's dollar. More cocaine. Fucking hate the rich. What happens if I become rich? That's the question. Just hate myself, wouldn't I? Even more so than I already do. No, I'm joking. Maybe a little bit. But yeah, defense pact. This defense pact could be a gateway deal to broader EU strategic alignments. And if youth mobility and food standards go smoothly, and we see an uptick in our economy, broader cooperation on climate, tech, and education, Erasmus, is likely to follow. So this is a good step. I'm glad to be able to talk about something that I'm actually kind of a little bit excited about. This might work. Not as much as I want it to, admittedly. But this, unlike nearly everything else Labour's done this fucking year, is a step in the right direction. Finally, one step in the right. There's been lots of steps in the wrong direction. But we'll see. But then there is a scepticism in the EU. Obviously, the UK is seen as an unreliable partner post-Brexit, and the Tories have gone a long way to damage Britain's soft power around the world in that respect. And also, the political backlash from the Tory right and refuck voters could erode more Labour support, but they've already done a great job of doing that on domestic issues, so I suppose at this point you're kind of like, fuck it. Dynamic alignment and court oversight needs to be handled delicately. So here's the issue. The Tories and the refuckers and the Brexiters, they made a big thing about pulling out of the European Court of Justice. Not to be confused with the European Court of Human Rights, which is not to be confused with the Equalities and Human Rights Commission. I know it's confusing, right? The ECJ, that is the arbiter for matters within the EU concerning trade, etc. Okay, so they set when a producer of a product is suspected to be not making things to the standards that is expected in the EU, and maybe a country is bringing in cheap electronic goods from China that doesn't have the CE mark on, or has a fake CE mark and is actually causing house fires. It's the ECJ that has oversight on that. You know, that's your redress. You take it to the ECJ and say, hey, this country or this company is importing this stuff that shouldn't be importing it. The ECJ has a say over that. So if we have regulatory alignment, there's going to be a point where something might go that a British producer is doing might go to the ECJ. So how do you work around that? Well, you have alignments with our court system, and you say, well, in this case, it would go to a British court and they would have to be impartial, but they would have the same powers as the ECJ has in the rest of the EU. Something along those lines. And I know it's not as simple as that, but there are ways of getting around the problem of the perception that Brexiters are going to have, and they're going to have this perception no matter what we do, that we are somehow selling out their wonderful, amazing Brexit by going back to a situation in which the ECJ has jurisdiction in any way, shape, or form over our products, our services, our goods, our trade. And also the immigration situation, young people being able to come here from Europe, this will no doubt be weaponized by the West. It will take, I reckon, 6 months. Once it comes in, 6 months, there'll be a story in one of the newspapers where it'll be someone who's come over on a youth mobility scheme visa from Romania, and they'll have committed a crime, a bad crime, something bad. They've done something bad, which they should go to jail for. But you can imagine how that will be received by the Daily Mail and the Express and all those shit rags like the Telegraph. They'll be like, oh no, this person who's an immigrant from, making that the main thing. And this is why I think we should fight back by pointing out that every criminal that ever does something bad ever reads the Mail. Mail reader, imprisoned for triple murder. Reform voter, chops down beloved tree. Tory voter, does something fucking horrible. Grooming gang. Everyone in the grooming gang supports Nigel Farage. Go through the old social media posts. I mean, you know that a lot of criminals, don't care about anyone else but themselves. They're quite selfish people. Selfish people tend not to be attracted to parties that are slightly more altruistic, socialistic, like Labour, Lib Dems, Greens. Your mileage may vary. They tend to be more attracted to authoritarian regimes, which is ironic in a way because they're criminals. And surely they would want a more laissez-faire attitude towards criminality, which means they don't go to jail for so long. But no, that's not the way it turns out. They want other people to suffer because they say that a lot of them suffer from the same mental health problems as millionaires do. In fact, most millionaires in this country have made their money through doing bad things. It might not be against the law, but it's bad things. A lot of the ancestral wealth that you see in this country right now came from the era of slavery and then subsequently the era of colonization. And a lot of the money that's being made now is not being made through moral means. The fact that if you're very rich, you can pass down intergenerational wealth, no questions asked. But if you're not quite that wealthy, you have to pay 40% after the first million that you get for free. Yeah, that's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing that people have to pay when they're in the middle, but the super rich don't have to pay stuff. That pisses me off. But one of the weird things, one of the weird little tricks that the devil pulls, the people in charge in this country, and in lots of countries, is when the middle is squeezed. So, for instance, inheritance tax is a really good example. You don't have to pay a penny of inheritance tax after the first million. The first million, if you get it from both your parents and it involves a property, you can get £1 million worth of stuff from your parents for free, tax-free, when they cark it. Anything over that is taxed at like 40%. All right. So anyone who's not, getting that much from that's a lot. Anyone who's not getting that much from their parents doesn't pay any tax at all. And then the super wealthy don't pay any tax at all because they've got clever lawyers and they buy some land or they move their assets to via Panama to Cayman Islands or the UK Virgin Islands. And then you've got the people in the middle, the people who do have to pay this tax. Now, do they blame the super rich for not paying their fair share? Is that what gets them vexed? Is that what gets them upset? No. It's the fact that poorer people don't have to pay the same tax as they do. That's what they got upset about. And this happens all the time. They got upset about if you're the squeezed middle, instead of looking up to John Cleese and going, you motherfucker, how come you don't have to pay this tax? You look down to Ronnie Corbett and go, why don't you have to pay tax? Which is objectively ridiculous, but it's what we do. We blame people who are poor in this country for so many of life's ills. And it's pushed by the newspapers, which we'll look at in a moment. But I wish we had a newspaper that would just go toe-to-toe against the Daily Telegraph, against the Sun, against the Mail and the Express, and say, Express reader, chops up person because they're evil. Make it very clear where their political allegiance lies, especially when they've done something really, really horrible, because that's what they do to us. They'll be the first person to fall over themselves if they want to put someone down as coming from another country, being trans, being gay. That'll be mentioned. That will be mentioned. Or supporting a football club. That will be mentioned. It will be Millwall supporter does something terrible, and they use this identity politics. That's what it is, against the people in society who might need some protection in order to demonize them. Oh, look what this fan of this football team did. Oh, this football hooligan. Look what this person did. They're from a different ethnic background to you and I. And that kind of othering is disgusting. But at the same time, I think there's an argument for a left-wing rag to just go toe-to-toe with them and say, right, this person who did this horrible crime reads the Mail. Avid Mail reader. Subscriber to the Mail Online does this horrible thing. George, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Authoritarians and criminals are two cheeks of the same arse. Can't disagree with that, George. Thank you very much for the super chat, which might be the last one of the morning. But that's okay. So yes, Defence Pact, going back to the EU negotiations, could be a gateway to broader EU strategic alignment. And if youth mobility and food standards go smoothly, we could see an uptick in our economy that we can point to and go, look what happens when we have closer relations with the EU. Thumbs up. So today's summit, it's not rejoining, obviously. But it does mark a big step, hopefully, the outcome, fingers crossed, a big step towards repairing our relations with the EU. And for that, we will get economic benefits. They won't be the same economic benefits that we will get if we rejoin the EU, but they are a step in the right direction. And we can use this to show that we need closer relations to the EU. Look what happened when we decided to have closer relations with the EU. There was a massive uptick in our economy. Please let that happen. It probably won't, but, that's fingers crossed. We'd like to see the economy grow. And, Brexit was not one event. It was a process. And getting back into the EU is a process. And I will support our journey back to the EU every step of the way. And I acknowledge that it is going to be a long fucking time. It is going to be a long journey. But I'm here for the long time. I'm here for the long haul. However long it takes. As long as it happens within my lifetime, that we are back where we belong with our brothers and sisters in the EU. And Starmer is betting the house on competence outshining ideology. This ideological noise. And I hope it works, I'm not happy with Starmer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm pissed off with a lot of things that he's done so far, especially this year. But on this, I'm hoping that he's right. I'm hoping that this will work. I really, really hope, I do have that. And whether the public feel tangible benefits as a result of this summit could be the difference between us rejoining the EU in 5 years or us rejoining the EU in 20 years. So let's hope it goes well, eh? Fingers crossed! Okay, so I'm going to head off in a moment, but before I do, I'm going to take you over to the papers, which I realise I probably haven't got queued up properly here. Let's just check on here if we can just get the papers up. Oh, there we go. Cool. Okay, so I'll just head over here. You little beauty. You little beauties. That's something like the Australians say. You little beauties. This is Little Mix star Jessie Nelson, who's had a horrific pregnancy, but she's had twins called Ocean and Story, which is, it's quite nice, isn't it? Ocean and Story. So nice, isn't it? Consider some of the celebrity names that people give their kids. Some of the names that celebrities give their kids. That's not so bad. There's a picture of the woman from the family on the front cover of the Daily Telegraph because they're obsessed, like some mad stalking obsessed person. I don't know why they're so obsessed. They're just so obsessed. But then, Labour revolt over Brexit betrayal. MPs warn of worst of both worlds deal will drive voters into the arms of refuck. Getting in there early. How I train my brain to be happier is at the top here. Maybe they stopped reading the Daily Telegraph. Princess inspires move for 6 months paternity leave. The Princess of Wales has inspired one of Britain's leading businesses to give new fathers 6 months of fully paid paternity leave. Oh, good. So there's a story about one of the family. There's a picture of a family person for no reason. And then this story that came out last night when we were doing Sunday service with Tan. A terrible story about Joe Biden being diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. This really is quite upsetting on a lot of levels. And but at the same time, I'm left thinking, bloody hell, if he had won, if he had run as president and won, you'll be facing a president who might not last for the term, which is one of the worries that people had, that he was so old. But my heart goes out to him and his family. I hope they say it's something that can be treated. It is an aggressive form of cancer. A prostate cancer, but I believe that it can be treated. So fingers crossed for Joe Biden. Moving on. Vlad's army, don't panic. Home Guards will return to quash evil Putin's attack on British soil. The Home Guard is being revived to stop mad Vlad Putin from attacking British power plants, internet cables, and airports. And it's got God, which? Oh fuck! Is it? It's not Jones, is it? He's the young kid. I've forgotten the names. I've forgotten the names of the characters of Dad's Army. I've not watched the repeats enough. But anyway, one of the Dad's Army people saying famously, they don't like it up them. Mr. Mannering. Oh God. Corporal Jones. Shit. Forgotten. Anyway, Elon's anger, music legend, hits out at Labour's absolute losers. Okay. And then we've got, as government looks to align with EU on common standards, Priti Patel warns, PM is hell-bent on selling out our Brexit freedoms. Okay. If you're rich, if you're rich, like Priti Patel, or like Monty here, who went to private school, or like Elton John, it's not so bad, These Brexit freedoms have been taken away because you can still live and travel around Europe if you want. Although I do think Elton John's had some choice words to say about mobility if you're a musician around the EU because of Brexit. But whatever. Kevin Spacey's to be honoured at gala dinner, even though he's evidently caused a lot of people a lot of pain, but they couldn't prove it in a court of law. So that's quite a difficult thing to do, and he is very, very rich, and rich people get away with breaking the law. Should he be honoured at a gala dinner? I don't think so. Also, the fact that he has not shown any remorse for what he's done. He's not done anything to build bridges with the people that he's hurt. And when Guy Pearce talked about his experience on LA Confidential with Kevin Spacey and talked about how difficult it was and how difficult it was for him, Kevin Spacey didn't seem to give a shit, He made fun of him. So no, I don't think he should be reintegrated into polite society. Talks on EU-UK relations to go down to wire before summit. Fishing rights among issues unresolved hours before crucial meeting. It has been resolved now, so don't worry about that. Chelsea sealed treble with silverware at Wembley. Sandy Baltimore scored twice to ensure a 3-0 win for Chelsea against Manchester United in the Women's FA Cup final. Excellent. And then Israel starts new ground offensive in Gaza. Oh, joy. So they're going to be doing more horrible things in Gaza. And then we've got, first for football, Chelsea women sealed domestic treble with FA Cup, which is good for them. Biden has aggressive prostate cancer. EU's fishing demands pose late threat to deal. So all this news is out of date because it didn't. And then the Daily Mail screaming like, diagnosing dementia. Well, maybe if you read the Daily Mail, that might give it away. Starmer surrender summit, they say at the top. PM risks Brexit vote betrayal. Sir Keir warned not to bind us back into EU rules and ECJ. New youth mobility scheme will be return of free movement, in inverted commas. Red Wall Labour rebels revolt as talks go down to the wire. Keir Starmer was last night warned that he would betray Brexit. Good. Betray Brexit. Brexit's a load of shit. You know what? Betraying Brexit is like betraying Hitler. There's no problem with it. It's a good thing to betray that thing because it's a bad thing. It's a bad idea. It was a bad move from the start. We never should have done it. Yes, let's betray Brexit. Let's betray everything Brexit stands for. Let's betray everything Brexit is, because Brexit is treachery. Brexit is being a traitor to the best interests of the people who live in this country, live on this rock. It is against their better interests. It makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. It is a machine of misery and contempt by the rich against the poor. And they can all fuck themselves to death, as far as I'm concerned, if they're going to scream and go, oh, we're being betrayed by our Brexit freedoms. I mean, what Brexit freedoms? Those motherfuckers took away your right to live and work, build a house, get married, settle down, have a family, retire in 32 of the most beautiful, peaceful, democratic nations in the world. They took that away from you. They didn't take it away from themselves. They didn't take it away from their kids. They didn't lose that freedom. You did. I did. Everyone I fucking hang out with did. Bastards. 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 And yes, we will betray your Brexit. We will stab it to death in its sleep because we should fucking nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Back to the fucking crazy ass fucking Daily Mail yelling at clouds. Revealed former US President Joe Biden has aggressive prostate cancer. as we mentioned. Hold on for your lives. Tall ship terror as 2 die in bridge crash. This was an awful collision of a ship, a Mexican sailing ship hit the Brooklyn Bridge, and 2 people died. Dozens were injured, and lots of people recorded it on their phones. Romania voted in key election. By the way, the results came in last night, and while we were doing the show actually with Superchat on Superchat channel, Romania voted for the mayor of Bucharest to become their new president, beating the MAGA knobhead far right Putin apologist on the other side. So that was good news. Good news from Romania, and good news also from Portugal, I think. Boutique lenders power post-COVID upswing in blank check SPAC deals. I have no idea what that means. 9 billion raised in offerings this year, sector spurred by Trump return, more lenient SEC expected. And then fisheries, food and youth mobility take EU, UK trade talks down to the wire. Well, they look like they've done it. The Nicky Wire from the Manic Street Preachers. Who knows? Johnny Reynolds has been on Radio 4's Today programme saying there's no reason why British sausages can't be sold in the EU. And the business secretary has praised the deal as a solid 8 out of 10. All right, Johnny. I'm not the kind of man to get hyperbolic about these things, but look, this is good for borders bills and for security in the UK and for jobs. And then we've got news in that PM is expected to highlight gains on jobs bills and the border. They'll take a lot of heat over the 12-year fishing deal. They're leaning into the other side of the bargain. And the sanitary and photosanitary rules on animal and food exports it could be a real shake-up for the British food and drink industry that's been hit really, really hard by Brexit. It's also been hit really, really hard by Trump's tariffs. Also, in this country, for instance, fewer people are drinking whiskey because Generation Z don't drink as much as previous generations. And as a result, whiskey sales in this country are down, which means there's less barley that they need. So that affects British barley farmers. But that dip in the market that's been caused by that and caused by the tariffs that America has put on should be slightly offset by the new deal that we've got with India, where the in some areas like the tariffs on Scotch whiskey went up to like 500% in the past, but they were around 150%, I think, at the start of the year. They're going to be reduced by half. I think it might be progressively getting, less of a tariff on there, but that opens up a huge market for Scotch whiskey, and hopefully that will, fill the gap. But then also, if they can trade again in the EU without having to have all these stupid non-tariff barriers in the way, that could mean whiskey prices coming down across the EU for Scotch whiskey and British-made whiskey. And as a result of that, we might see, an uptick in our economy overall. I mean, this is why I'm saying this is a good thing. Ivan, thank you very much for the £10 super chat, my friend. That's very kind of you. I shouldn't have phoned into LBC with James O'Brien with my dissenting positions. His patronizer, it was very producing. No, his producer was very patronizing. I should have kept on here this morning. Yeah, mate. I only call in to James O'Brien now. I haven't done it for quite a long time, actually. But I've only called in when I've got something that I know that he'll want on his channel. And there are certain things that he just doesn't want. And he doesn't want to get into an argument with someone who kind of agrees with him about a lot of stuff. He'd rather get into an argument, because it's good for clickbait, with people who completely disagree with him and think he's a knobhead, and go straight in with the ad hominem attacks. And they're the people that he wants to have those conversations with, or people who just agree with him. So it's like a fine balance of like, if you're going to disagree with James O'Brien and you want to get on the show, you've got to really, really disagree with him. But then you stand a chance of him pulling your pants up over your head. So yeah, you roll that dice and you take your choices. But yeah, it's. I've had times when I've called up in the past and they've just gone, yeah, we'll call you back. And I just stopped doing it. And I left it. So I'd only call like once a year or something. And when I did, it was when I had something like proper, Ray Liotta to say. It was that good. It was that good. But yeah, so yeah, you should have stayed here, Ivan. Now you've learned your lesson. I hope you've learned your lesson, my friend. But there you go. Funny you should say that. Close mate of Indian origin and alcoholic. That's not very funny, Mr. Tishk. But yeah, the thing is about India is the people. It's not a big drinking culture in India, but it's just so many people. It's 1.4 billion people live in India. So even if it's a tiny percentage of the population who want to drink your whiskey, it's still a lot of whiskey sales. It's a lot of whiskey sales. Rosie says these Brexiters, Farage, etc., should be dealt with more harshly by journalists and actually push them on the realities of Brexit. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Rosie. You're absolutely right. But they're not, because they all went to school together. All these journalists that you see on TV, they all went to school with the people that they interview. They're always like, would the minister like to say some nice words to me? And they're like, yeah, yes, they're nice words. People love whiskey in India. Yeah, they do. And that's one of the reasons why the tax on it was so high. The tariff. The tariff, which is a tax. Absolutely, it's a tax. So I'll just check the latest news before I run away. Into the dust. I'll be back at 9:00 tonight for Stateside. We'll be talking about all the shit going on over on the other side of the Atlantic. There's been no update on the BBC website in the last 12 minutes, so I'm going to call it a day. Well, call it a morning anyway. So, first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you so much to everyone who dropped a super chat in this morning. Really kind, really generous. You keep this channel alive. I'm indebted. I'm indebted to your generosity. Thank you so much. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who's watching out there. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It takes a second, and you will get, and if you click the bell notification icon, you will get told when we're going live with shows each day. We have at least usually 2 live shows each weekday, 3 on a Friday, and usually 1 or 2 shows on a Sunday. If you would like to join us here on the channel as a member and get a little rose after your name, you can press the join button. SG's got a rose, and Philip's got a rose. Rosie's got a rose. Hey, Rosie's got a rose. How awesome is that? And if you could just do one little favour, you don't fancy parting with your hard-earned cash, just give us a like. Just a quick like before you go. It really does help the channel. Helps the algo. Helps feed the algorithm. It is an insatiable beast, and it must be fed. I'm going to go away now. See you at 9:00 tonight. If not, I'll see you at 9:00 tomorrow morning for another Morning Brew. I've been Graham Hughes. You've been awesome. Until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.